TikTok. It's time to rock, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Sunday show. It's actually the Zoso show, Brad. It's the Zoso show, not the Sunday show. There he is. Look, I've got to isolate that. Get this right, ladies and gentlemen. Eye candy.
Good work.
Clickbait. Good to see you guys.
I've only got the record.
No, we don't want the record. We want the clickbait. We want the clickbait.
we want the guns.
No, seriously. We're here for the music. Honestly, aren't we, Simon?
We are.
And some clickbait. But not from me. I want to see more of Andrew's clickbait.
Oh, my Lord. Oh, my gosh. We're late. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, Brad. Sorry, Rock Professor. We're late. We're too busy gas bagging in the green room. And I've got to make this quite clear. We were doing a show earlier on the Fruitcake Tony show, and I talked about the green room, mentioned the green room. And our friend John ZD351 said, is that because you guys are smoking some green stuff in the green room? Is that why it's called the green room? Ladies and gentlemen, no, it's not because we smoke stuff in the green room.
No. Look, see, we're already going down that route again. Look what happened last week. See, the trouble.
It's called the green room because originally on live TV, they painted the room behind the main stage where the sound stage was green because it was apparently a cool, calming colour, Simon. Is that correct?
That is true. Yeah, green, definitely. Yeah. See, we're a minor fact here. Factoids, actually, really, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Unfakeable is one thing that one of my friends watched. He watched the show and he said, I can tell you something. You and those other two cats, when you do that Rankin of the track show that you guys do, I said, yeah. He goes, my gosh, that's unfakeable what you guys do. I said, mate, that is just one of the best compliments I've ever heard. Unfakeable, Brad.
Yes. Unfakeable.
Unbloody fakeable.
I don't even know what that means. Is that
it's a play on F-U-C-K-able.
Steady now.
Yeah,
oh, yes,
it's
okay.
a play. Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, I'm gas bagging.
Unbelievable.
Unfakeable. But anyway, yeah. I might do some of our screenshots. Some of our show cards guys might have, also known as the Unfakeables or something like that. You know?
The Unfakeables. That's a new Disney superhero movie, isn't it? The Unfakeables.
Brad.
Yes.
We'll get back to the script. You've got some good news to share with everybody.
Oh yeah. Look, our show we did last week on ranking the tracks of Philip Sace's Peace Machine. We've got 2.3 thousand views on that one in a week. So that's unbelievable. Fantastic. And 342 thumbs up is what I'm seeing. So that's, I don't know if that's close to a record for the channel in a week. That's amazing. We're really, really thankful and grateful for everyone's support to the show and support to that show that we did. We can't thank you guys enough. It was a really good show, I think we did too. I think we did justice to the album, and hopefully, if you haven't heard about Philip Sace before, you've investigated who he is by now and checked out his Spotify and all that. So hopefully that. But yeah, congrats, guys. I think we did a great job on that.
Yeah, so do I, and I'm really pleased that it went really well. You know, perhaps used to do more modern things.
I've got a feeling Philip Sace, because I know him a little bit, and I think he'll be very, very happy with that. So he'll be very grateful.
Hopefully,
yeah.
Yeah, I want to do a shout out to you, bro, for a couple of things, getting us to do the ranking for Philip, sharing that originally with Philip, and Philip sharing that stream on his social media accounts for us, bro. So Philip, thank you for doing that for our small little channel. But Brad, thank you, bro, for driving that forward for us, because things like that just they don't just happen, Simon. We know that, don't they?
We do.
No, they don't just happen. And again, Philip took that upon himself to share it. So he must have enjoyed the show and thought it was good enough to share on his socials. So thank you, Philip. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
One day you might come on. That would be cool, wouldn't it?
Well, that we can only hope. But I'd love to get him on to talk about his new album. That's coming out sometime, hopefully this year. He said so. That'd be amazing if we can get him on to talk
Dare
about
to
that.
dream.
Yeah,
that's what I said.
and he's such a nice guy. So he'll fit right in with us. Troublemakers.
The unfakeables.
Oh dear. Well, I'll tell you another little thing. Just on the moving right along, that on the subject, I put out that little 12-string thing to Tangerine me playing. My eldest daughter sent me a message last night on WhatsApp. She said, "Dad," she said, "have you seen all the nice things people have said about you on YouTube?" So she was surprised and delighted by the fact. So everyone who left a really kind, nice comment at my graphy playing, thank you so much. My daughter was over the moon about it. And that's very nice. Makes her dad very happy.
It was good. It was really good, Simon. I really enjoyed watching that. I thought it was great.
I just thought it was a bit of fun, really. Just kind of, I thought I'll just, because I've been able to play it forever. I thought, why don't I just I'll do a little video and I'll send it to Andrew. He could put it on the channel and I'll share it on the thing, saying it's a little taster for this week's show. So yeah, it was great. I was really enjoyed it. Took me 5 minutes to do, as ever. I should pay more attention and do more things, but
we want more. We want more.
And we'll do that for anybody too. That wants to share anything, like that on the channel. We had some good responses to a couple of days ago. John Conklin as well, doing that. So no, it's always good, and it's what we're about. And the fact that your daughter has seen those comments and realised that there is some positivity and some good stuff going on social media, Brad. That's what we're about, bro. And it's fantastic.
Yes.
Really nice.
What else are we? Oh, Simon, you've got some other stuff to talk about.
So I've got some other things to mark, and the passing. We need to mark the passing of Jim Gordon, drummer on the Derek and the Dominoes. We mark the passing of here, and All Things Must Pass, and lots of other people as well. But one of the pillars of our channel, and he died this week, age 77. And clearly he'd been in prison and had a lot of mental illness, but still he played on one of the greatest records ever, or two of the greatest records ever, actually, because All Things Must Pass is a fantastic record too.
And both of those albums are in our fast becoming our canon of albums that we've ranked, Brad.
Yes.
Layla album, 2 shows. And how many shows did we do with George? 3 shows, or was it 4?
3, I think.
Three epic shows.
Yeah.
3 weeks.
3 for Layla. Yeah.
Big show.
Yeah.
So if you love those albums, you'll love those shows we did.
Yeah. So that was
when are we going to rate the tracks? Very, very soon, Farmer Fifi.
Sorry, Farm Fifi, are we keeping you up? With that nonsense. We should also mark the passing of Gary Rossington, the last original member of Leonard Skinner. And as I've recounted on this channel a few times before, I went to see Leonard Skinner the first time they were here, they supported a Dutch band called Golden Earring. And Golden Earring had one great song, which is Radar Love. Unfortunately, Leonard Skinner had two. They had Sweet Home Alabama and Freebird. They were the only band I ever saw at the my local municipal hall of Colston Hall. They were the only band support band I ever saw who got an encore. They got an encore because they were fantastic, and they.
Sorry, fam. It's what we do here.
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry.
Keeping you up clearly, but and the one thing that struck me, having seen them play, was how smooth a player he was. His fingers didn't seem to move hardly at all on the fretboard. And I remember, it's just one of those things that struck me about. I thought, look at him. He's so economic with his movement when he changes from chord to chord. You hardly see his fingers move at all. Yeah, clearly, it's just one of those things that struck me as a small. Unlike many other guitarists, where there's a lot of hand movement, but if you go and watch him, very smooth and very economical hand movement. Always remembered that, and always struck me as something kind of that stood out. So
awesome,
Gary, R.I.P. mate, and
rest in peace, Gary.
And thirdly, we should mention yesterday was Bobby Whitlock's birthday, another alumni from the Derek and the Dominoes. We should mention, it's that's so happy birthday to Bobby Whitlock. Yeah, one of the
75.
75 years old.
Yeah.
So so good for him.
Yeah, thanks for that kind message there, Brad. Please be nice. It's what we do here, Farmer Fifi. We and for anybody else that's watching on a replay, we do like to have a bit of a introduction and talk about things that have happened in the music world before we kick the album off. It's just what we do.
It's just what we do. We have to get into it first.
Yes.
We're going to warm the room with our kindness and smiles and happiness, and that's what keeps people here.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And shall I do a shout out? Talking of that, shall I do a shout out to the chat?
Yes.
People in the chat quickly.
Please
so
do.
Good morning.
We'll kick it off.
Yeah. Then we'll start. Good morning to Gret Zeppelin, Tim Thomas, Holly Lewis. Morning, Christopher Live Summer. Good morning, Chris. I've got Ellen Toll, of course. Morning, Ellen. Hope you're good. Hugh Caldwell. Hugh's up early in sunny Scotland, like me. Morning, Hugh. Hope you've got the coffee on. I certainly have. Keep me going. I think Keith Campbell as well. Morning, Keith. I think Keith was on the show with you earlier. Fruitcake Coney show with you earlier. So he's
I was
still
on
up as
their
well.
show.
Yes. What did I say? have I made you do a takeover? All of dear. Well, yes. Anyway, that one. And Farmer Fifi, we're getting to it. Farmer Fifi, don't panic. So morning all. Hope I got everyone. And Amy, good morning, Amy. It's nice to see you as well. So morning to everyone. Glad you're all here.
Awesome.
Yes.
Now, I've got a couple of picks, ladies and gentlemen. I don't have a lot of picks that we would normally show because we agreed last week. We've already done, and we'll attach that video if you're watching on a replay around about here, Brad. We did a show with Alan Garber where we went through and discussed all the gear, the history behind the album, what led up to the album. So we won't go over that all again. That's a pretty good video by itself, so Simon will attach that. But yeah, you've got the intro. You're going to kick it off, and then do we want to talk about when we first came across this album ourselves individually before we rank the tracks?
Yeah.
Sounds like
that'd be good.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
So yeah. So anyway, Led Zeppelin 3 is surprisingly the third studio album by Led Zeppelin, released in October 1970, recorded in 3 locations: Headley Grange, using the Rolling Stones mobile studio, and also an Island Studios and Olympic Studios in London. Again, the album shows them growing as musicians, introducing more instruments into the canon.
Yep.
As usual, Led Zeppelin not using anyone else, by the way, but everyone sort of branching out, especially John Paul Jones using synthesizers, mandolins, double basses, but Jimmy Page also playing the banjo. One track, we'll get to that, and John Bonham playing sort of tablas and things, and just expanding it all out as they expand their musical palette. So more instruments, but yes, not except for the string section on the one track is clearly not them. But for the most part, they still all do it themselves. Still their old adage, isn't it? It's Bron-Y-Aur, yes. It's so I think it shows them progressing, and I think that we've talked a lot about that 1970 thing with late 60s, that blooming of musical ideas, the bloom of musical horizons. We did the Fillmore, we did the Allman Brothers, that kind of mixing of blues, jazz, rock, all mixing it together and having long form songs and things. It's because nobody done it before. Nobody said you couldn't, so we're just going to do whatever we want, and keep going at it. And I think it's a credit to those bands, their pioneering attitude to making music. Was they always moved, they always changed, and and that variety, I think, is one of the key things of bands and albums from this period. Oh, absolutely. It's one of the things they did. The last track is not going to sound like the next one. It's a kind of almost a manifesto of things. So we can watch out for that. It has we can talk about the cover a little bit. I've got this. This is re-release, by the way, not the original. I think I've got a much earlier one and thing, but everyone knows about the circular thing that goes round, of course, and stuff. And this is I got something else that's a bit more. Sorry, it's fallen on the floor. I got this as well, which is a single of the Immigrant Song and Hey Hey What Can I Do?
Awesome.
Beautiful.
Which I found dug out in my singles box. Yeah,
That's unreal.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's probably a bit rare. I don't know if it's that rare.
No,
yeah,
it's very rare.
So, but I think of Hey Hey What Can I Do as being in the same the same sort of same era as this.
We'll talk about the album too, I'm sure. Maybe in the conclusion, because there's a lot of views. Obviously, Page has said a lot of things about that album, and I'm sure we've all got interpretations and opinions on that album cover, Brad. We can talk about that at the conclusion, maybe.
Cool.
Yes.
Yeah. So, as we know, quite a lot of it was recorded in a cottage in Wales called Bron-Y-Aur, and Page and Plant, when Plant had stayed there in the past with his family, done a little had holidays there, so he invited Page up to to do some walking and some getting together some new songs for the next album, which they duly did. Apparently, he's had no running water or electric power, which encouraged that kind of acoustic approach. Clearly, it had nothing to plug into.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I hope somebody would. So I just want to interject. Can you imagine 2023 era act staying Brad, where there's no hot water and running cold water and no shower, no room service? Could you imagine? That ain't going to happen, bro, is it?
No chance. No chance.
No chance.
No chance at all.
But and clearly those Page's influences of Bert Jansch, Davy Graham, all those alternative tunings, and were reflected in the things they did came up with this album quite a lot, and also an American musician called John Fahey, Fahey. I don't know if you've come across him. He's a sort of extraordinary maverick American 12-string guitar player. Worth checking out as if you haven't heard him. He's amazing kind of finger picking sort of technique, but very much in the tradition of acoustic blues stuff. But clear, Page, one of his influences, John Fahey, I think it's Fahey, pronounces it. And apologies, I'm Farmer Fifi's bringing me up for my mispronunciation of Bron-Y-Aur, but
it's okay, mate. It's fine. we're just organic fans hanging out, bro.
And so that's kind of the background to it. As I said, recorded here in England and engineered by Andy Johns and Terry Manning, who did lots and lots of other things, and produced, of course, as always, by Jimmy Page, the master himself at the controls. The stuff we can get talking about some of the
There's
things.
another reason why that 12-string acoustic guy is important too, isn't he? Because he introduced the tube limiter, didn't he, to Jimmy Page, Brad? Is that correct? The tube limiter for frequencing out the highs and the lows of acoustic guitars?
Yes, I do believe so. From
yeah,
reading that previously. Yes, 100%. Thanks for the intro, Simon. That was really good.
There we are.
Yes.
What do you got? You got
no, it's fine. No. I was just typing a message. It's fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, yes, introduction. I think yes. Do you want to talk about when you first heard the album, guys? And then we'll get into it.
Sure, Brad.
As with all Led Zeppelin stuff, I pretty much was introduced to Led Zeppelin at an early age, and I think one of my best mates through primary school and through high school, his name was Luke Foley, and his brother had the entire Led Zeppelin collection on CD, and got into Led Zeppelin through that sort of connection, and then Led Zeppelin 3 was just one of the ones that I borrowed the CD, took it home, listened to it. We listened to it together. It was one of those things, and eventually ended up buying all the Led Zeppelin collection myself. And but that connection there through Led Zeppelin is very infectious to me. It became almost part of my DNA and who I am as a musician. Led Zeppelin were, and as I've alluded to on this channel in the past, is probably one of the reasons why I play guitar and write songs and do what I do is because of Led Zeppelin, not just because of Jimmy Page, the whole package, the band itself, and Led Zeppelin 3 in particular. It took a while for me to really connect with this record because I loved the more boisterous energy that Led Zeppelin had, and the delicate stuff really grew on me in time. It just became like, I really like this more than I did before. I liked it, but I'm not saying I didn't dislike it. I liked it, but I was more gravitating to Achilles' Last Stand and all those sort of things. But, going to, That's the Way now, and I listen to That's the Way. It's a beautiful song, and Gallows Pole. All these songs in here, Tangerine, they're just they're almost on my playlist to go through at least once a week, once a fortnight, once a month. I'm listening to these songs. I have a playlist of acoustic sort of mellow tracks just to listen to, and Zeppelin 3, all the stuff off that is on there. So, but that's it for me with Led Zeppelin 3. Simon, how about yourself, guys?
Yeah, I'll go quickly, and then we'll get the rock professor in, and then he can kick off the rankings. There's just a couple of things. John's comment here is a comment that I heard many, many times when I was a young guy growing up, and I understand that. But I'm going to be truthful and honest with you. when I discovered this album, Brad and Simon, I was listening. I had. Hold on. I had a 12-string guitar. I was listening to Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. I was listening to Neil Young at the same time I discovered this album, Brad. So me listening to Four-Way Street or Deja Vu or, Live Rust, and then switching to listen to Led Zeppelin 3, there was no jolt. There was no huge dichotomy for my listening ears. And it wasn't until a couple of years later where I was talking with other people who were casual Led Zeppelin fans, where they'd turn around and say, it's a shit album. It's acoustic, because it doesn't have Black Dog on it, or anything like that. So, interesting. It was an interesting observation. And then obviously the rise of internet, and as Christopher Saar was said, reading books and stuff like that, where you started to pick up, actually some people globally were didn't get this album. So yeah, that's my view with it. No disjoint for me when I was a young cat growing up. It actually dovetailed into everything perfectly, Simon.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd like to know, John, why it didn't click with you at all.
Because he's a rocker.
Because that's the way life is. Oh no. Well, I'm sure we've all got those things. I mean, I'm one for, as we all know on this show, that that you listen to things and everybody else gets it and you go, I don't get this at all.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but it just doesn't click with you. I think it's I think that's fine, to be honest. It's from my point of view, I clearly heard the record not quite when it came out, because I didn't start buying records till 72. But
sure.
Physical Graffiti, Led Zeppelin 4, and Led Zeppelin, all those Led Zeppelin ones were, we got them all. We had them all. From then on, you picked them up over that couple of years, those first, saved up and saved up your paper round money and went out and bought these albums as they came in. But as far as I was concerned, of course, they were all classic albums, Led Zeppelin, and pretty current and fantastic records. And I like them all from the off, and bought them, going forward, bought them from when they came out. But I think not at all, John. I don't think there's no onus on you to like it. If you don't get it, you don't get it.
Yeah, and honestly, John, there's no, you don't have to get every single album either. That's the beauty of music. There's something that connects with one person, the other person might not agree with, and that's the wonderful thing about music itself. I think if you're into heavier stuff, this album has got a couple of things on there that may prick the ears up, but the rest of it might not be your cup of tea, and that's okay too. That's okay too.
Yeah, I know a lot of people personally over the years who've shared exactly that same sentiment. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, completely. So I'm in huge sympathy with anybody who doesn't get it, because I don't think there is any onus upon you to get it, because you either like it or you don't. Your ears and your heart say it's either I like this or it passes you by. And we all I'm sure we all got bands that that everybody else likes, and we just scratch our heads and go, oh, I don't get this at all. Terrible.
100%.
Mentioning our names.
Yeah, we'll leave them nameless. I might upset some people if I tell people the bands I scratch my head at.
That's fine, I don't think there's any issue about it at all myself. Don't have to like what everybody else likes or like what anybody else likes, really, do you? It's okay. No, John, that's fine. Don't worry. It's not. If you don't share the love for it, you don't. If it doesn't move you, it doesn't move you, and that's that's it. Anyway, so that's where I came in with it. Just pretty not quite at the beginning, but it's when I bang on about this. When I went to see them in '75, they did 2 or 3 songs off this record. So still part of their canon. And, loved it. Yeah.
I have to agree with Christopher there that Plant's voice was just perfect on this album. Really was.
100%.
His voice was, we'll get into that as we go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Andrew.
So, is he done? Yes.
Andrew.
Shall we begin?
Yeah.
He's nodding.
Where we're at. Did you want to talk about Led Zeppelin 3 to you, Andrew, or?
No, we're fine. We can kick off the rankings if you want.
No, carry on. Did we miss you? Am I going too fast? Did you? No.
No.
That's all right. Cool. All right then. Let us begin then with side one. You know me. It's always side one and side two. That's how it works. I've enjoyed listening to this on my stereo stuff this week. It's been great. But so for side one is the classic, the Immigrant Song. As we said, one of the few records released as a single in various places. So Led Zeppelin didn't do many. They did one or two in America, but they didn't do many. And so the Immigrant Song starts off in what I would call most typical Zepp style. It's got a big riff, heavy drumming, and big chords for the chorus. It's inspired by a short tour of Iceland in June 1970. There was this thing back then where you did cultural exchanges. Bands did cultural exchanges with Ice. So an Icelandic band, I don't know what they would have come here and played here, and Led Zeppelin would have gone to Iceland and played in Iceland as a thing, which is quite odd to think about it now. But and the whole tenet of it is about their trip to Iceland, and also about lining themselves up with the Viking settlers who struck out for new lands and stuff. So I think, as I say, one of those classic Led Zeppelin songs with a tremendous riff. Plant's great singing. I always say this, and it's boring to say it, but the drumming is fantastic. Drives it, but with swing. The most difficult thing to do, I think. If you go too fast, too hard, it becomes straightens out, and you get less swing. But Bonham never less than than keeping it swinging, but driving it forward. Amazing double track vocals and that kind of funky ending to do it. But 10 out of 10 from me, never a skip. Brad.
Well, the Immigrant Song, undeniably one of the most iconic guitar riffs of all time, in my opinion. First passage of this song is played without bass, and the first time I listened to this song, I was like, what's going on? Like there was no bass guitar, and then when the bass comes in the parts of the verse, it just sounds intensely big. It's just like this is power. It's raw power coming at you. Robert Plant's voice is impeccable on this whole album, but this track is unbelievable. He takes us on a mystical journey of Vikings and overlords and everything else. You can imagine. He puts you paints a picture with his words, and you can really, if you sit back and listen to what's going on lyrically, you feel like you're in a storybook. It's unbelievable the way he writes. You can really tell by this third album that Robert Plant has cemented himself as a vocalist. His vocal stylings, he's got his own style by this point, and his ability, ongoing ability, I have to say, to write amazing lyrics. There is some epic bass playing from John Paul Jones in this. That bass playing, especially with the progression up, that's just I played this song in cover bands in the past, and the bass players always complain about playing that line. You know, that's just always going to the drummer, slow down, it's too fast, because of trouble getting that line in properly. So John Paul Jones is on fire, and John Bonham's just infectious with this. He's got that. I'm glad you mentioned it, Simon. That natural swing. He doesn't lose it no matter what speed he's playing, and he's driving. He's pushing the song, but he's not in front of the beat, which is something that's really difficult to do, and he does it amazingly. Jimmy Page adds some really great guitar overdubs to his main riff just to fatten up the song. I have to highly recommend to all guitar players of all levels, like beginner to advanced. It's a really good riff to practice regularly, because it's just like that. If you practice it slow and you speed it up and you get that, it's good practice for that string skipping exercises, and it's the timing thing is really quite interesting, because I've seen guitarists play it, but if you listen to how Jimmy Page does it, it's quite it doesn't roll. Everyone thinks it rolls, or I've seen a lot of players do it where they roll the riff, and it doesn't quite roll, because it's got that. I can't explain it, but when you slow the riff down, you can really hear what Jimmy Page is trying to achieve there, and there's a slight accent there, which is fantastic. I love the song. Fantastic way to start the album. We always talk about that, and I couldn't imagine this album not starting with this song. So 10 out of 10 from me, never a skip. Andrew.
Yeah, look, I agree with you guys. You know, I've mentioned this before. I went to a Catholic school, and one of the required readings was Lord of the Rings. So when you're a young guy reading Lord of the Rings and you're discovering Led Zeppelin at the same time, and a song's talking about Valhalla, we are coming, ice and snow, and all this kind of stuff, Simon, it just makes this come alive, you know, and then obviously you find out that they're writing songs about characters in this book. So just, you know, this wonderful sort of sequence of music going behind the back of my brain when I'm growing up. Brad, that's still etched in there, still etched. I can't, you know, it's chiseled into my memories. You know, that galloping horse off to war riff, as you guys have said, it's just fantastic. It's just pure brilliance, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And, you know, one interesting little thing, too, is that I remember I was talking to a couple of cats a few years ago about this, and they mentioned something interesting. Go and check out Hendrix's Little Miss Lover, where they've got the guitar and the drums thing going on, you know. So there's that connection there back in this, you know, early, late 60s, early 70s thing going, you know, where clearly Hendrix may have an influence on what Page is doing. Again, not necessarily a bad thing. Yeah. Short song, 2 minutes 23, but my gosh, we've mentioned this before. It sounds like it's just twice or three times as long as that, doesn't it? You also, Brad, mentioned the bass at that 44-second. You've got that lift in the bass line, you know, at the 44-second mark, which just lifts the song, gives it that just, you know, extra energy. It's like fantastic. I see Farmer Fifi made a comment, you know, it ain't easy being John Paul Jones. So, you know, clearly that's a John Paul Jones thing there by just lifting up that bass early on in the riff. Wonderful. I agree with you guys. It's 10 out of 10, never a skip. Great opening track. One of my favourite Led Zeppelin songs ever. I got to agree with John ZD351. It's a fave.
Yeah. And of course, this song used to stretch out live. So, you know, it was a blueprint for what was to come when they performed this song live.
Yep.
Simon.
Absolutely, yeah. So, second track is Friends, which is much more an acoustic track. It apparently uses a C6 tuning on the guitar. So he played a harmony acoustic tune to CAC GCE to C-type tuning, but not a typical C-type tuning. He kind of made it up, apparently. This song includes a string section, of course arranged by John Paul Jones. John Paul Jones had done that many times before. And and was the start, I think, of this introduction of the Indian influence into I think maybe done a bit earlier, but this is certainly one of those ones where you feel that Indian influence very strongly. Clearly, reaching its apex in something like Kashmir. But to me, there's a direct line between Friends and their later stuff. And as I said earlier, that kind of opening up and other musical influences coming in. They're not the only band doing this. Other bands are introducing Indian influences at this time. The Beatles have done sitar, of course. The Rolling Stones. So it's they're very much open to it as an alternative influence to just a straightforward blues thing. Page said that he wrote it after he'd had an argument with somebody, although you wouldn't know, he said, which is quite fun. But and they wrote it in Wales when him and Plant were in Wales as well. I think you can tell that it's been influenced by Neil Young. There's the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Carry On. If you listen to that, the first part of the song is very close to this song, so it's worth checking out if you want to hear where some of the influences. I think that's how these things were going on then. So it's I think that as I've said, the acoustic plays, you've got the tablas, John Bonham playing tablas, and then you've got the orchestration, which gives it a real kind of feel, unlike stuff they do, and wobbly synthesizer at the end, even to introduce some modern stuff. 9 out of 10 from me. Never a skip. Great second track and a sort of gateway into what this album is going to be like. I think maybe than the Immigrant Song, which I think is a bit more of a dragging you in kind of thing, from more like the sound of previous albums. Brad.
Well, you've been reading my notes, Simon. Naughty, naughty.
I'm first. You've been reading mine.
Yeah, look, Friends, it's an exotic acoustic number. I think it's a wonderful song. I love the tuning that Jimmy Page is using on the acoustic. There's got a really nice drone vibe going on, which obviously is that they're leaning towards that Indian vibe, bringing that within that great percussion with the tablas from John Bonham. Robert's voice on this sounds incredible. Amazing lyrics as well. And we spoke about it before, and I think it was Christopher mentioned something about his voice on this album. You're really hearing it by this song. You're really hearing Robert is singing like you'd unheard before, like he's never really performed and sung this well up until this point in his career. So he's really become who he identifiably was, the golden god of rock. Again, amazing lyrics. The string section that was arranged by John Paul Jones, it's definitely got that exotic Indian feel. It's an interesting second song choice for the album, I reckon. But it works really well, especially, the way that synthesizer drones into the next song and segues into the next song. Not to take anything away saying it's an interesting second song choice, because I could never listen to this album without this song coming in second. So great song. 9 out of 10 for me. Never a skip, Andrew.
Oh, I think I'm going to be on my own here. Friends. Obviously a huge shift in the band's music since Led Zeppelin 2, isn't it? The Rock Professor mentioned Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young's Carry On, and I mentioned that in the intro. I was listening and discovering, this American folk rock scene at the same time. Thank you, Garth Blomfield, and thank you to your sister who put you onto this stuff. Had a huge influence on me. The string melody evokes a lot of air and mystery, doesn't it, Brad? And the star, obviously, on this piece, as you guys have already mentioned, is Plant's vocal. You know, in the past, and on this song here, he still uses those blues intervals, but pulls notes beyond the home key on this. And this is why it sounds so good to us, because he's not singing in those home keys. A bit like Page, you know, extending out of the pentatonic box and doing all this other things that he becomes more and more famous for. The CIA influence that you guys mentioned, the Celtic, Indian, African influence is huge on this. It's just remarkable, and as the rock professor said, it harks back to Harrison's Within You, Without You, which is just a fantastic song in itself. That song influenced so many other artists, didn't it? You know, I think that's where it began, in my mind anyway, even though maybe the Stones, maybe Brian Jones was playing it maybe a year earlier, I don't know, but around that same time, 66, as you said, Simon. This number assimilates all the elements of other music, you know, that Celtic, Indian, African influence into this song. And bear in mind, you know, 26, 27, Plant 22 years old. It's just mind-boggling. It's a masterpiece, in my opinion. This song is a Brad score. I just absolutely love this song. Never, ever skip this song.
That's awesome.
No, absolutely not. I also think that I'll just say quick, and we'll talk a bit more as we go through. But you know, the arrangement and the kind of the recording of it, you know, and you know, this guitar, the acoustic guitar sounds great. You know, the instruments are really well balanced. As we've said before, Jimmy Page, you know, knows when to do things, when to just hold, when to, you know, and there's. I love albums from this era always have a lot of space in them, you know, and this is no exception. And I think that that's really important to the atmosphere and the vibe of this record, is that it does have a lot of space, it does have a lot of you know, air in it that you can move, and I think it gives each instrument a bit more room to resonate and a bit more room to show what it can do, the kind of thing. But anyway, so we move on to track 3, which is Celebration Day. Which kind of segues in from Friends. Apparently the beginning of the master tape was kinked and wouldn't play in the tape machine, so it was cut out, and the ending of the synthesizer of Friends was composited over the end to disguise it, which is why it runs into the other.
Yep.
Which I didn't know until now. So Jimmy Page did an interview with Guitar World magazine, and he said that there's about 3 or 4 riffs going on in that one. Half was done with the guitar in standard tuning, and the other half was done on a slide guitar tuned in open A. I think we put it together at Headley Grange because we rented the Rolling Stones mobile recording studio. We could relax and take our time, develop the songs in rehearsals. We didn't have to worry about wasting studio time. When he used to play it live, he played it on his electric 12-string. So I think he, in the same interview, Robert Plant talks about the effect of John Bonham on the band. Besides being one of the best drummers I've ever heard, he was also one of the loudest. It was the reason we had to buy bigger amps. It's very nice. And Plant has said that the lyrics reflect his impressions of New York City. But you know, it starts off with that riff by Page over the drone, over the synth drone, and then the drums come in, and you know, I've said it on the Blues track, but you know, the way that John Bonham comes in, but the swing he has, you know, it's got that amazing kind of, you know, that combination of the two things, the power and the swing. That you know, it's incredible to behold in my books. Every time it comes in, every time you listen to it, you know, I think, wow, listen to that. It's amazing. The hairs stand on the back of my neck whenever he comes in playing it. This is quite a straightforward song in terms of, you know, having a chorus and a verse and those things. But you know, the great melodic bass line playing from John Paul Jones as ever. But you know, I think can be underrated as a musician in many ways. But you know, they're all such fantastic musicians. You know, that kind of zeitgeist of getting 4 incredible musicians like that came into one band is an amazing stroke of luck. I love that clean double track solo as well, keeping it short, keeping it straight, and the solo to the end with Plant's scat singing over the top. So 10 out of 10 from me. Never a skip. Great track.
Celebration Day. Look, there's some epic guitar playing on this song. I love the way that Jimmy Page tracks guitars, and this is a perfect example of perfection for the song. He just managed to pick the right things to record, and overdubs. His overdubs on this song are perfect. Couldn't pick a better way to overdub, to accent, to emphasize the powerful points of the song. He just does it really well, and that's the mind of a remarkable musician that can do that. This is probably the first time since the album started we really hear Jimmy Page open up a little bit on the electric guitar. In the Immigrant Song, obviously he's just grinding along on that riff and making the song big. And this song, he starts to show some finesse and a little bit of style and a little bit of guitar soloing going on. There's some very interesting bass lines from John Paul Jones going on. Very melodic, moving parts, and equally, Motowny funkiness going on as well. You mentioned, Simon, about John Bonham's drumming. He does he has such an amazing feel, and on this song is no exception. And the interplay between John Bonham and Jonesy is remarkable. People, they need to, in a band, it's hard to describe this properly. In a band, it's hard to get just musicians working well together, like putting a group of people together and get them to work well together. Sometimes I've been in lineups where the bass player and drummer, they don't play together. They're just playing their parts, and these guys they just worked so well together. The rhythm section of Jones and Bonham was just unbelievable. Robert Plant's voice on this song, again, it's amazing. His lyrics, again, he's proving at this stage of Led Zeppelin's career, he's evolving as a poetic genius. He's starting to put together masterpieces lyrically, not to take anything away from Led Zeppelin 1 and 2, but, now he's really becoming Robert Plant on this album. I love the guitar solo in this song. Like I said before, Jimmy Page, everything he does on this song is perfect. This is a perfect example of a guitar solo that's created to suit the song perfectly. He could have overplayed on this. He could have done whatever he wanted. He just decided to play the right thing. It's a remarkable solo. The highlights, obviously, for me, is that part of it. For me, is that the vocals and guitars are just fantastic. The outro of the song, there's more lead guitar parts there from Jimmy Page, and there's a little bit of call response stuff going on with Robert Plant and Jimmy Page toward the outro too, which I love. That blues thing that I love in blues music, the guitar and the vocals doing that interplay. For me, 10 out of 10, never a skip. Andrew.
Yeah, I'm going to pinch a little bit off you, bro. Celebration Day, it's a departure from, again, previous Led Zeppelin songs, if you like. Got a hint of blues, got a bit of Elmore James going on in here, and a bit of funk as well. That 8/8 pattern that you mentioned with Page playing that B.B. King fill sounds odd, but only Page can make that work. Only Page does that. And again, one of the reasons why the guy is a genius. I just want to make this reference point here. I've mentioned this book before when we've spoken about Led Zeppelin. So a lot of the way that I hear Led Zeppelin technically now has been influenced by this guy here, Greg. Check him out. What he offers from a fan and from a guitar player's perspective is easy for a guy like me to digest. I love that semi-spoken verse, Brad, that you mentioned that's at the end. It's got that funk feel from Page going on. I love it. I've given it a 9 out of 10 too. Great song.
Yeah.
Yeah. yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Catch you later, Robert.
Well done. Yeah, cheers, Robert. Sleep well. I guess it's late where you are. Okay, so the next track 3, is Since I've Been Loving You. It's one of the first songs to be written for the album. Apparently it was up for consideration for Led Zeppelin 2, but was bumped for Whole Lot of Love. Well, bumping one song for another, one fantastic song for another. Amazing. It became a live performance staple for the band throughout the rest of their career. I think that we certainly ranked it as part of The Song Remains the Same, for sure. And but he said that it's, and I think this is probably where Plant's voice, it's an instrument. On this is almost, it's not even almost what he's singing in terms of lyrics. It's just the sound and the emotion and the and the building of it that is the vocal range is quite astonishing. And I think I listen to it. It's it's amazing. This song. I think things like, he said in a Mojo interview, and the music progression at the end of each verse, the chord choice is not a natural place to go, but it's that lift up that's there, that's so regal and so emotional. You don't know whether it was Jimmy Page or John Paul Jones, but when they reach that point in the song, you get a lump in the throat from being in the middle of it. It was recorded live in the studio with very little overdubbing. If you listen carefully, you can hear the squeak of John Bonham's drum pedal, which I think is a classic cover, classic fact about this song. But something I didn't know until comparatively recently was that the first 5 notes are taken from New York City Blues by the Yardbirds. When Jimmy Page was not a member, I think it was Jeff Beck was a member of that. So it was a kind of tribute to them, really. It's just, but I only knew that comparatively recently, and me and Alan Garber. I said, "Are you doing a ranking the tracks of the Yardbirds?" On his comment about my little 12-string piece. So, very nice, Alan. Thank you for reminding me that that's the case. It's fantastic. I think that Terry Manning, the engineer, has called it the best rock guitar solo of all time. I don't know about that, but that's a big claim. But I do think that it is an extraordinary piece of playing. I've listened to this track 1,000 times, and I've absolutely thrilled every time I hear it. For me, it is the one of his great masterpieces. I've talked on here about how the tonal changes, the dynamics, the play quietly, play loud, change the pickups, change the all those things that that he does. And on here, he does it to perfection. It's not a straight 12-bar blues, but it is the blues in essence. John Paul Jones plays the organ, and the bass pedals, but you don't miss the bass. Really, it's just a amazing kind of tonal difference in having that organ play instead of that. Extraordinary drumming from John Bonham. I think that it's amazing that what is on this. As I say, for me, this is a masterpiece. This is 1,000 out of 10. It's a Brad score. I've listened to it 1,000 times. I can't get over what a thrilling and track it is, and the playing and stuff. So I can't say more about it than that. I'll leave it to you guys. But yeah, 1,000 out of 10 from me. Never a skip. Brad.
I don't know where to go after that one, Simon. But
sorry.
Look, I'll just go through my notes anyway, because we're crossing over. All three of us are crossing over a little bit on this. Since I've been loving you, from that iconic intro by Jimmy Page of this song to the very last second of the song, it's a masterpiece. It's my all-time favorite minor blues song by any artist. Jimmy Page plays brilliantly on this song, like you alluded to. His lead guitar work through the intro of the song alone is legendary. John Bonham He's the master of setting a vibe and dynamics. And in this song, it's no exception. He accents and plays off Jimmy Page quite a bit during this song. John Paul Jones is outstanding. His hammering and playing, and the way he plays the bass pedals as well, his feel. There's just something genius about what he does, in my opinion. And he sets the vibe. The ambience is coming from, John Paul Jones, and he's reading what's going on. Robert Plant, his vocal ability, lyrical content, he sets the tone and mood for this song. There's a real deep blues influence in his delivery through this song vocally, but he somehow manages to not sound as if he's copying anyone. He actually sets a new blueprint and a level above everyone else for a blues singer. And I adore this song, and I adore the way he sings on it. The way this band plays together is something else. I believe, you mentioned they recorded this live. I believe that's what you're hearing is a live performance in the studio, because this song requires the band to be in the moment and capture that chemistry. I couldn't imagine these guys trying to track this song and overdub. It's just not possible to get that. This band works on as a four-piece unit. Simon, you mentioned Robert Plant's vocal as being an instrument as well. I see that all the time, and I think it's like 4 members of this band is so important on these recordings. They captured the chemistry. Again, I have to talk about Jimmy Page's guitar playing in this song a little bit more. I hope you guys don't mind. His use of scales, his chord voicings, inversions, his genius. His guitar tone is sensational. The main guitar solo in this song, it brings tears to my eyes every time. I'm feeling like the emotion behind the song. It's not just notes for me. It's not trying to be flashy or whatever. He's actually playing to evoke emotion. And that's something Jimmy Page does all the time. But this is one of the greatest blues songs of all time, in my opinion. And every time I listen to this song, I get lost. It's brilliant. By far, my favorite song on the album. It's a 1,000,000 out of 10. Never a skip for me, Andrew.
Yeah, I've been listening intently to what you guys have been saying, and obviously reading people's in the comments. I think John ZD351 is out on his own on this one. But
sorry, John.
Well,
John, no mates. John, no mates in the chat.
This is a safe place for people to express their opinions, Dr. Walton.
I know that.
I think they were trying to create it. They were creating their own blues.
He pays us out a little bit, so just, John, no mates. Anyway, look, I too, there's a lot of crossovers, as Brad has mentioned, so I too am going to share my notes with you guys, if that's okay. So I'm glad the Rock Professor mentioned the squeaky pedal. For years, I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it until it was pointed out to me, and was like, oh, yeah. And then I hear it. And it's just one of those things. It's just like, shit, I wish I didn't hear it, but yeah.
I don't hear it. But,
no, sometimes you do. But slow, as Brad said, slow blues and 6/8. The Rock Professor mentioned the Hammond B3 supplying the bass line. I think that's one of the secrets behind why the song sounds so great. I think he's not playing the bass. He's just using, that Hammond, giving it that air. And we've spoken about this before, how the organ keyboards can do that on a rock song, even a slow blues song. It's just wonderful. And this is clearly one of those examples where it's doing its job. Rock Professor, it's easy to think that this is just a showcase for Plant's vocals on this song, but in fact it's a showcase for the full scale of display and that telepathic interplay, Brad, that you were talking about, that Led Zeppelin have as musicians on this song. It's just remarkable. within the modern blues thing. So you've got to remember that this is an interpretation back in 1970, 69, 70. It's a modern interpretation of blues. Keep that in mind too, folks. When I sort of thought about that, I thought, I get it. I get where they're going. You mentioned Brad Page's solo. Wow, the lines that he uses on that solo, bro, it's a freshness and spontaneity that no one else at that time was using. No one. Nobody at that time was using that freshness and spontaneity on the scales and with this guitar that Page was using. 7-minute masterpiece. I got to agree with you. It's the best track on the album. It's a Brad score.
Of course it is. It's I think that just following up, Andrew, on that that one of the great things about Jimmy Page is when he plays, he really goes for it, doesn't he? That thing about straight off the cliff. Is like and to sit down and and this tune's for old John, isn't it? This is not the show for you, John, is it? Sorry, mate. Is it? We'll be back on form next week. It's, oh dear, but that's fair enough, isn't it? That's fine. So I think that that's what amazes me. That is that, and I've said it on about other shows. They that ability to just improvise off the edge of the cliff. To go for it and have the technique and to be able to produce something like this, as a one-off guitar solo, just played through live. It's just extraordinary to me that as I said before about you can produce a 7-minute song and you can put in all those dynamics, the playing, the feel, the going off the edge, at the right time. You can do it all at the right time where it absolutely adds to the building of the song and the journey of it.
Are you ranking it again, Simon?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going around again. Shoot me now. Sorry.
Are you changing your score?
No. Yes. 1,000,000 out of 10, not 1,000. I've revised it up, not down. So no, sorry. Yes, we'll move on to the next track. The next track is out quickly. Being told off by the producer.
No.
Sorry, what was that?
If we're going to rank the tracks again, we all got to do it, I suppose.
Anybody else want a second go? Or shall I move on? Oh dear. Oh dear. Anyway, quickly moving on. Sorry, what was that, producer? Sorry, I'm getting a buzzing noise in my ear.
That's John ZD351.
Yeah. Oh dear. Anyway, yes. Moving right along to the last track on this side, which is Out on the Tiles, which was mostly written by John Bonham, who apparently came up with the ideas for the riffs that run through the track. The introduction was used to open live version to Black Dog and Bonham's drum solo on the 1977 US tour. So John Bonham would talk about going out on the tiles, meaning going out to bars all night and raving it up. So I don't know if it's a peculiarly British expression, but we all know what that means in the UK. And basically the guitar effect on this is the ambient sound, getting the distance of time lag from one end of the room to the other and putting that in as well. So Page as a producer coming to the fore and mixing in that thing. So, great riff with bass and drums straight in, Plant singing over that swinging Bonham shuffle that only John Bonham can do. No, it's not over. It's not only John Bonham can do, but that he can do spectacularly well. Again, plenty of space, for the riff. A great double tracked vocals in the chorus as well. So it's Yeah, absolutely, Farmer Fifi. It is the grooviest groove, isn't it? Really, really there. Fantastic drumming and great funky playing with Robert Plant, scat singing, and then you've got the drum phased at the end with some fantastic fills over underneath Page's playing. 9 out of 10 from me. Never a skip. Great track to finish. Brad.
Yes, well, Out on the Tiles, I think every time I listen to this song, I wish that descending guitar line, the riff, I wish it would go twice before the vocals would come in. I don't know what, like, it's too short. It needs to go one more time. But it's a fantastic riff. Again, I think Robert Plant sings fantastically on this one. John Bonham, in my opinion, is the highlight of this one. His kick pattern, very reminiscent of early years of Zeppelin, like Zeppelin 1. I'm even thinking like Communication Breakdown.
Yep.
I'm hearing a lot of that early Led Zeppelin on this song in particular. Some fantastic guitar tracking. I love the way Robert sings the backing vocals in this song. John Paul Jones, we can't forget about that man. His input to this song is very important. He's so locked in with John Bonham. And as I alluded to before, Bonham's kick snare patterns, the way he plays between the kick and the snare, it's got that early Led Zeppelin thing going on there. And I love how Jones is locked into that. I love how the song takes a little shift towards the end. You can hear that middle position of Jimmy Page's Les Paul being kicked in, and I love the drums, the panning, and the song, the way it fades out. We always talk about track listings. I think this is a great song to end side one, and it's a fantastic song. I think the song could have been a bit longer, but it's a 10 out of 10. That's skip. Andrew.
Yeah, I won't repeat what you guys have said other than a couple of things. Yeah, look, everybody clearly is banging on about John Bonham's drumming on this, the pattern he's using. Definitely a star. I too have made a note linking back to that early album that he'd done. And I don't know what went on there, whether or not it was mic'd differently, Simon, or maybe he was just doing something physically different, maybe a different set of drums. I don't know, but there was certainly sounds a little bit different to me as well. And I think that might be because of that muddy guitar tone. Now when I say muddy, it's not necessarily a criticism, but it's a muddy tone with the guitars and the bass going on there, Simon, as opposed to previous songs. So again, is that just because these guys are just using the tone knobs on their guitars? Because that was pretty simple, this setup back then, wasn't it? They were using
the neck pickup.
Or the neck, So from that point of view, really interesting song. Look, I've given this a 9 out of 10 too, but definitely the star for me on this is, Mr. Bonham.
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay, cool. That was the end of side one. Andrew, have you got picks to show, or should we move on to side two?
I've got a couple of picks here, guys, that we should. So, look, there's the cover. I'll get rid of that comment there from Farmer Fifi. Give me a second so we can see the pics properly.
See the pics.
That's the cover. And we'll talk about that a little bit at the end, maybe. There's the picture of the... what star rating would that have been back in 70s, Simon? 1 star?
Probably yes. No electricity, no running water. Yeah, that definitely be what would you give that on TripAdvisor?
yeah, but certainly a place that gave them that creative drive, Brad, for them to come out and bring out an album that's clearly reflective of, just look at this famous pick, clearly reflective of this environment, isn't it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But if you've been on tour and going crazy around America stuff, it's a place of tranquility and peace, isn't it? And clearly in 1970s, no internet or anything else to annoy you. You have to sit around the campfire and play acoustic guitars. What could be better?
Sure. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because if you look at this pic here, this sort of sums up that attitude. They're wearing beards. This is Page's in the dragon suit. He's wearing jeans. Tambourine, mandolin, and guitar. Brad. West Coast hippie vibe going on there, brother.
Just a tad.
There's Jonesy with his mandolin. That's a pick from the same era.
Yeah. Look at that. All within an inch of each other, gathered around the drums.
Yep.
Like we always say, not spread out, but absolutely all in tune.
Yeah.
Another pick from the era, So look at Page. He could have just come out of. If it wasn't for the low slung Les Paul, you'd think that he was still in the Yardbirds. Wearing that dandy sort of neck scarf. And here's the last one.
Yes. Still doing it.
Great fella.
Yeah. Again, just standing, everyone standing within an inch of each other. Fantastic, yeah.
No skin tight jeans, Simon. No dragon suit. We're getting there. The
dragon suit is soon.
It's coming.
But not yet. Not yet.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes. I think I'm gonna get a dragon suit. I think I'm gonna get one made.
Come on.
Always want one.
Really?
I don't think I can pull it off like Jimmy Page did, though. That's for sure.
Note to other half. A dragon suit would be good.
No, I can't do it. If I was doing a classic rock show, I reckon I would. Yeah.
I tell you what, if you get a dragon suit, I'll get a nudie suit.
You have to highlight it on the show.
No. One of the, a nudie suit. It's the flying burritos used to wear them. With those bright red suits with cactuses and star. Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry. It's not. Don't worry. It's not. Despite the name, it's not quite what it seems.
Oh, I would never do that.
What?
Oh. Oh.
Oh God. That'd be clickbait.
Oh dear. Anyway,
stop trying to get me to talk about what I get up to on a Saturday night, bro. I ain't telling you.
We already know. We already know, Andrew. We can't talk about it on the channel.
Yes. We already had too much of that last week. We'll stop that now. Yes, John, absolutely. Oh dear. We'll send Holly. Holly knows where the store is in Nashville, so we'll be sending her down there to choose one for you. Nice one, Holly. So anyway, shall we move on to side 2?
Yes, please.
Okay. So side 2 opens with Gallows Pole, which is an updated arrangement of a traditional folk song called "The Maid Freed from the Gallows," which is based on an old blues song called "Gallows Pole," which was popularized by Leadbelly. So I think it's considered traditional, as a trad-R, one of those trad-R songs. Apparently, Page got the idea from hearing the version by Californian folk singer Fred Gerlach. Page explained when previewing the song for Melody Maker, he was one of the first white people on Folkways Records to get involved in Leadbelly. We've completely rearranged and changed the verse. Robert wrote a new set of lyrics, and that's John Paul Jones on mandolin and bass, and I'm playing banjo, 6-string acoustic, 12-string, and electric guitar. So basically, the lyrics are about a man trying to delay his hanging till his friends and family can rescue him. And, although interestingly, in many other versions, the hangman sets the protagonist free, but not in the Led Zeppelin version. Sadly, he meets his demise in spite of his bribes. Oh, look at that rhyme. So it's apparently the only Led Zeppelin song that features a banjo. And he wrote it on a banjo he borrowed from John Paul Jones. He'd never played it before, I don't think, anyway. But so we've got the 12-string playing at the beginning, and it's pretty much a straightforward folk song. I love Plant singing on this. He holds the melody around, and I think that as Page knows exactly what to do, doesn't he? So he brings it. Mandolin comes in, and then you've got the bass coming in. You've got drums and the banjo. At 2:05 to add more color and more dynamic to the track, and apparently it speeds up a bit as well. There's a bit of speeding up going on, a bit like Stairway to Heaven as well. But apparently it's a Jimmy Page technique. It's not good morning R2 R3 locking nut. How you doing? Hope you're good. So apparently that's one of a production thing by Page, is to deliberately speed it up a bit, give it. And towards the end, you've got the you take out the 12-string, then you've got the electric playing as well, playing the solo towards the end, and you fade out with the Plant scat singing over the top. 9 out of 10 from me, never a skip. I always love this track. It's got tremendous swing to it. Brad.
Yeah, I agree. Gallows Pole for me. It's got a real spooky vibe to it. There's like that acoustic folky blues vibe going on. It's very spooky. Some wonderful vocals from Robert Plant again. He's obviously, he's tapped in here into, singing amazingly. Some wonderful acoustics on this. You alluded to the banjos, the electric guitars as well. All that's obviously Jimmy Page tracking that, and then the John Paul Jones, the bass. His bass playing on this is fantastic. I don't know if you've really listened to it, but there's a lot going on, and the mandolin just sets that lovely sort of texture and tone to the track that played by John Paul Jones as well. And then you've got Bonzo. Like when he comes in, when John Bonham comes in, the song just takes off. It's like it's launched into another stratosphere. His drumming, it's just like it's pushing with urgency, but I can't explain it. It's just got something quite unique. It's got a shuffle, but it's not in front of the beat. It's pushing the song though with urgency. It's amazing, and I love the way he does that. He does that on other songs as well. Touching on what John Paul Jones does at the end of the track as well, on his bass here, it's fantastic. And he's playing across what John Bonham's playing. So he fits in with what John Bonham's playing, but he's playing across it. It's now that's what I call musicianship at its best. Again, I mentioned Rob Plant's vocals, the outro, his vocals are fantastic on this song. I see this as a group effort song. There's no real major highlight from anyone other than the whole band just sounds fantastic. I gave it a 9 out of 10. It's never a skip. And I think it's a fantastic way to start side 2. Andrew.
Banjo, mandolin, 6-string acoustic, 12-string acoustic, pedal steel guitar, 8 out of 10.
Is that it?
Oh, no, it's a great song. It's I can't repeat. You guys have said it all. It's great.
Nice one. How beautifully and succinctly put.
Thank you.
Took us by surprise.
Yeah. I'm a little bit shocked. I expected a little bit more out of you.
Don't worry, bro. It's coming.
All right. Okay, here we go.
Anyway, so yes, well, anyway, moving on to track 2, Tangerine. As you may have guessed, this is one of my favourites. As I did that little 1 minute piece just to play a bit of it. It's
Cool.
it's one of the things I learned when the 12 string I used on it. Is it behind me? No, it's over there. The Echo Ranger 12. Andrew and I have it. My parents bought it for me for my 18th birthday, so I had one and it's one of the things I learned to play on it. Was that somehow So it's one of the it's like when you learn to play something, it has I have a special attachment to that as a sort of 12 string set piece that that I really like. So apparently Jimmy Page wrote it and recorded it when he was still in the Yardbirds, called Knowing That I'm Losing You. And this is pretty much probably the only one, is it? The only one last 11 song Page wrote without any input from Robert Plant. It's also the only track on 3 for which Plant didn't write the lyrics. So, as I've said, it's, there's some pedal steel on it as well, which is, and that sort of false beginning as well, which is a sort of technique. But I love this song. I think it's got a fantastic melody. I love the sound of the 12 string more than anything else. I think it's quite birds-like and in its thing. I think the electric solo is a beautiful kind of piece of little melodic brilliance. Short, sharp, to the point, just contains it. Not over the top. Does exactly what it's supposed to. I love the lap steel. It just gives it a different texture, different viewpoint, and some nice harmony singing over the towards the end. I gave this a 10 out of 10 and never a skip, but that's personal to me. Brad.
Understood.
I can't complain about a 10 out of 10 from you, Simon, because I think it's a beautiful song.
He doesn't give it much, eh?
Sorry, what was that?
He doesn't give it 10 out of 10 much. So you take it while you can, bro.
Take it. Look, I think it's a beautiful song, and you alluded to the fact it was written by Jimmy Page in the Yardbirds and stemmed from that. I love that the little intro warm up at the start of the song before it actually starts. I love the way they do that, and then they count the song in. I think that just adds a bit of character and shows that the band were human and they just liked to, we hear an album. It brought a little bit of personal flavor to the album, in my opinion. Once Jimmy starts those lush acoustic 12-string chords, the chord structure of the song, it takes off. Robert Plant sings a motive with a real delicate touch to the song, like he's giving it what he thinks it deserves, like a nice delicate touch. I love the pedal steel guitar throughout the song that's added, and I think Jimmy Page's solo it's something else. The way he's just put that really lush solo on there. It's not a big overplaying bluesy solo. It's just a melodic thing that's really, really nice. It's a simple song with a wonderful melody, and I mean that's what the Beatles did well as well. I mean, you can't knock that. It's something about the way that Jonesy and John Paul Jones play together as well. They play wonderfully on this song. There's lots of space, lots of air, lots of emotion, to breathe in. It's a wonderful song. I gave it a 10 out of 10 and never a skip. Andrew.
Okay. The Allman Brothers Band. Oh, sorry, wrong album. Okay.
I'm
sorry.
He's stirring up a bit today.
No, I'm being a little bit funny. I know. Since we've ranked the Allman Brothers Band, I go. Oh, I've just been saying, okay, the Allman, because that's what the guy says at the start. Yeah, sorry. Anyway, back to the seriousness of Led Zeppelin 3. One of the things that became clear to me when I was reading a little bit about Led Zeppelin and their songwriting prowess and all those things attached to it. The Love Lost ballad was a big thing in 67, 68, 69, Simon. So obviously, clearly, as you guys have pointed out, Jimmy Page, product of his time, is writing about that topic with this song. Not a bad thing. It's just an observation. Okay. I love the triple. I understand. Triple, 3, treble, tracked plant vocals. I can't recall many other songs where he's done triple vocal tracks.
I think there's another track coming up where he's done a few vocals, but yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think you're right. Yeah,
I know there's songs off the top of my head. I can't, where he's done a different vocal on the same vocal, if that makes sense. Okay, anyway, I don't know. But when that became aware, I went and listened to it. Oh yeah, it's nice. You mentioned it too, Brad. I love the interplay, the guitar and the mandolin interplay. It's fantastic. It's definitely a high point on the song for me. And Plant's soft voice on the lyrics is really, really nice on this. He's doing something, Simon, with his vocals differently on this track. Guys, I've ranked this 8 out of 10. Never a skip.
that's okay.
Very fair. Very fair. No, it's fine. Yeah,
Still a good score. If it was 7, you'd be timed out. But 8's okay.
8 out of 10. Derisory.
Who's giving that a 10 out of 10?
That's fine. Yeah. As I say, I have a connection
Alan,
to it.
9 out of 10. Yep.
Me and R2, you see, learning it as when we got a 12 string when we were 16. See, perfect. So, well done, R2. I'm with you all the way on that. So anyway, the next track is "That's the Way." Originally titled "The Boy Next Door." It was written in Bron-Y-Aur and is about the problems that two people faced in a relationship and the clashes with their family. The song became a staple part of the group's acoustic set throughout the 70s and was played at the Bath Festival when Led Zeppelin performed acoustically for the first time in the UK.
Yep.
I can't remember whether they did it at Earl's Court in 75. They may well have done in the acoustic section. By the time I saw them, they're in the proper acoustic set in the middle. Just a song reflects Robert Plant's views on ecology and the environment. So quite an early version of about with some ecology and environmental concerns in the song.
Sure.
It's a very nice, beautiful song. I think that playing on a 12 string and again we've got the lap steel or slide. I think lap steel. Again, Page plays so beautifully with the right parts. Got different parts, but he knows exactly what to do as a producer and as a composer about to do. We should say no drums on this. No drums on it at all. Just a bit of bass at the end, but basically 12-string lap steel and Plant's beautiful singing to I think as a sort of leading on from the last track, but it's one of those songs that it is. I mean, Ellen pointed out just now, but I think this is the real kind of breathe-in track, where you just stop. There's no drums. It's kind of quite a tranquil feel to it. It's really good. I gave this 8.5 out of 10. Never a skip. Brad.
That's the way it is, my friend. and that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Cookie crumbles.
That I'm trying to be funny, guys. It doesn't work. That's the way. Another wonderful acoustic track. There's some real delicate, emotive vocals from Robert Plant on this. I love that pedal steel, lap steel, whatever it is there. I love that the inclusion of that on this song is very important. I think this is an important song for Led Zeppelin because Jimmy Page, in my understanding was really thought this was a breakthrough for Robert Plant lyrically. This song, it's a catchy song. It's got great melody and meaning. Can really tell Robert Plant's embracing the vibe of this. He sticks to the tuning that Jimmy Page has used and tonally shifted his voice to suit that tuning. I picked that up on my second or third listen through to this. This song evokes emotion, thoughts. It's easy to get lost in this number. I love that reverse reverb effect on the outro of the guitars, the spooky vocals of Robert Plant, especially on the harmonies. And who doesn't love a good tambourine ending to a song? It's got that little bit of tambourine at the end of the song. So I gave it a 9 out of 10. It's never a skip for me, guys.
Yeah, I love the timbre of this song. I love the acoustic vibe, Simon, that you mentioned, and Brad. It's fantastic. I too noticed the earth element being really important in this song, and thought, well, these guys again. You sort of sit back when you listen to the stuff, and they're talking about these ecological, Greenpeace issues. That's how we described it back in the day when we were first discovering this album. A subtle political statement by the band. Even back then it was becoming something, wasn't it, Simon? The environment and it's been an issue, for a long time, and to have a rock and roll band, hint at it and talk about it, and then when you take into account, the metaphysical aspect of Page and Plant and what they were reading and what they were doing, and the elements, the earth element, being a big part of what they are. And the location of where they recorded and what inspired this album, I like that backstory to the song. I'm not going to add what you guys have added as far as the elements of the song musically, other than the fact that it's got that acoustic vibe feel that we showed pictures about. And I just want to repeat the thing that I said at the beginning. When I'm a young guy listening to this for the first time, it wasn't disjointed, because I was listening to Joni Mitchell. I was listening to all this stuff at a young age, and to have this come in, even some of the Byrds stuff, with that 12-string guitar, a bit of Bob Dylan as well too, Simon. It all fitted.
Hey. Yeah, absolutely.
It all fitted together, and so because of that, I'm going to give it 9 out of 10. I probably would have given it 7, but, I like the story around the song. So 9 out of 10, Brad.
2 for the story.
2 for the story, Brad.
Good work.
For the story. Fair enough. That's fine. That's okay. So the next track is named after the cottage where they stayed in, Bron-Y-Aur in Wales. Originally called Jennings Farm Blues, and Jennings Farm Blues is on this album if you want to check it out, on the new remastered Led Zeppelin set that Jimmy Page did recently. Not that recently, probably, but anyway, it feels in the last 5 minutes, but probably not. So clearly is an acoustic number and features John Bonham on spoons. There we are. It's a peculiarly English musical thing, playing the spoons, I think. Maybe not English, but that's how I feel about it. Is so it's an acoustic, and he plays that lovely harmonics at the beginning, just to introduce you, and then he plays that kind of very picking sort of melody. You've got John Bonham in just with bass drum, really, just going doom, doom, doom. Quite right, Hugh. Absolutely, should be banned. So just again, it's that contrasting, isn't it? Just you have drums, but you've just got the bass drum going doom, 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 and muted bass from John Paul Jones. Again, Plant singing. but instead of the snare, you've got the hand claps, haven't you? Those kind of Motown hand claps that carry on. Great harmony singing in the second verse. Great bass playing as well, kind of deep resonant bass playing, and subdued drums. And you've got that drop down to a single acoustic guitar at 254. Very nice. Again, that contrast, that kind of use, dynamics, understanding when to drop out, when to stop, that Page is so good at, and things. And that lovely single chord at the end, just that rings out beautifully. 8.5 out of 10 from me, never a skip. Lovely track.
Yep.
Bron-Y-Aur Stomp. Very folksy little number. Love the sound of the acoustics on this, and the thumping kick drum by John Bonham that you told us about, Simon. I love that. And yes, the spoons that add that flavour. Did you get? Pardon the pun. Add the flavour. The spoon.
Yes, very good.
Thank you.
Very
Yes.
good.
He's like, he's in Pun City this morning, isn't he? Mr. Cook.
And being Brad, it won't be a teaspoon. It'll be a tablespoon, ladies. It'll probably be a ladle.
Yeah, ladle. Always do things. Don't do things in halves here, mate. I do them in full.
That's right. That's the way.
Full size spoon.
Yeah. So the spoons in the song. I know Soundgarden did it later on, but this, it's just added that little nice flavour. Say it again. Rob Plant's vocals. He's singing very freely in this song, and the lyrics are cool. There's some fantastic guitar playing and even better vocal tracking. If you want to talk about his vocals, he's doubling his vocals in parts and even tripling with to fatten up with his harmonies. And I think it makes it sound huge, but he still keeps that free vibe. Like he's not really forcing anything. It's very folksy. We talk about track listings on albums and how they flow. And I couldn't imagine Led Zeppelin 3 without this song. It's the second last position. I think it's a great little song. I gave it 9 out of 10, and it's never a skip. Andrew.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Brad, because I never liked this song for a long, long time. Never. Now I just told you guys that I loved, the folk stuff going on at the time, but I just couldn't see how this song back then fitted into it. And I don't know why. I tried to think about why I didn't like it. It's certainly a song over the last, say, 15 years, when I listen to this album, that I anticipate, as you said, Brad, it's got that folk feel to it, which is a continuation of, that the theme on this album. And I don't say that in a negative way at all. It's a great thing. I'm glad the rock professor mentioned the spoons being a very British thing, because I've got visions in my mind of my dad being half pissed out of his brain. He couldn't play a musical instrument, but he would pull out the spoons and he would try and play something to the spoons, So it was, it's just one of those hilarious things that you have memories,
Nice,
of playing the spoons, and then finding out later on that lots of other people, when they get drunk, do that too, that can't play guitars.
I can hardly play it sober. Never mind.
Well, that's right. It's hilarious, isn't it, when you find that being the case. But I'm glad you mentioned it. And the open tuning, or more precisely, Jimmy Page's tunings. Again, the guy just tuning to the song. And I didn't understand that until I started playing the banjo. And what you do is you tune relative. So you find a string that you like, the tonality of a string, and then you tune all the other strings relative to that sound. So again, Page working this out. There was no internet back then for him to do that. So again, I take my hat off to the fact that they wanted to do something different tonally with acoustic instruments. And I think that's why I didn't like it, Simon, because it didn't sound like the other songs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So skip forward 25 years later, because I'm not that old, 25 years later. Add another 20 on there. I love the song. I've given it an 8 out of 10, though. I love the song. 8 out of 10. It's never a skip, Brad.
That's a good score.
No, that's fine.
Good work.
Yeah. Interesting how you've changed your opinion of it over the years. Kind of got closer to it and got closer to what it's trying to do and stuff. Yeah. As I said earlier, I think the great point is, in 1970 you could do all this variety. You could do variety stuff. Put anything you wanted on. Nobody said ooh. Because it's all there to be used as textures and things. Anyway, onwards to the last track, which is Hats Off to Roy Harper. Of course, Roy Harper was their friend and folk singer, Roy Harper. I presume people are familiar with him. When the Old Cricketer Leaves the Crease is one of his most famous songs. Lovely song, fantastic song that. And but yeah, Jimmy Page and Roy Harper had some high old times a bit later on, which can be seen in an Old Grey Whistle Test interview, which is very funny. Want to watch it?
It's hilarious.
It's hilarious. It's quite a laugh. But so this is based on a Booker White song called "Shake 'Em On Down," and apparently the original LP credited the arrangement to Charles Obscure, a band in joke. It features Plant's voice fed through a vibrato amplifier. Apparently, Harper came to pick up an album from the Led Zeppelin office, and Jimmy Page had to tell him to look at the track listing 3 times before he noticed there was a track named after him. This is the last one, so you've got to read a long way down in his defense. But it's Jimmy Page explaining the track to Melody Maker. He said, Jimmy Page said it came about from a jam Robert and I had one night. There's a whole tape of us bashing different blues things. Robert had been playing the harmonica through the amp, then he used it to sing through. It's supposed to be a sincere hats off to Roy because he's a really talented bloke who's had a lot of problems. So it's kind of got that backwards guitar and vocals at the beginning, and then that singing through the amp gives it a strange, spooky kind of otherworldly vibe, doesn't it? And that unsettling blues slide acoustic is definitely gives it that sold my soul to the devil at the crossroads kind of vibe. I think and it's kind of quite impressionistic for the first minute and a half, and then it kind of gets into the rhythm, starts to get a rhythm. But yes, it's a kind of eerie, otherworldly, channeling the deep blues type of song. I think it's great. I think it gives it 9 out of 10 for me. Never a skip. A great ending to the album. Kind of weird, spooky ending. Brad.
Hats off to Roy Harper. I love how Zeppelin would always pick something a little bit unique to end their albums. They would always pick something like, I think of like the first album, the second album, then this one. This is something a little bit out of ordinary for what they were trying to achieve, but it's got still ties in with the blues and the folk thing that they were doing. Now this has got a very hypnotic vocal from Robert Plant. He's singing, obviously, like you alluded to, through a vibrato amplifier. There's some real Delta vibes going on with Jimmy Page on the slide guitar there. I think they included this because they were proud of what they were doing on this jam. I don't think it was something that was intended to be on the album. That's just my personal opinion. I think they've thought, let's put this on because it's really quite cool. The way they've done it, they actually try to bring their own spin on a blues classic. I think that's important to do when you if you're trying to replicate a song or cover a song, I don't think it's a good idea to always play it the same way unless you're doing a tribute band. I think it's good to put your own spin on things. And look, to cap it off, I think it's a fantastic way to end the album. It's this is an extremely important album in history. It's more important to the Zeppelin catalog, defining the band as a versatile act and not afraid to delve into their acoustic energy. Even though they were a blues rock band at heart, I had to give this song a 9 out of 10. I think it's a. I never used to listen to this song. I used to skip it as a kid. I used to loathe it. But as I got older, I found the beauty in it. So yes, a 9 out of 10 for me. Andrew.
Yeah, I did the same thing too. I was skipping the last couple of songs for a long time because it just didn't have a fit for me. And John ZD351 is making some great contributions to the discussion in the chat, which is fantastic. I know why I didn't initially like the previous song, because of that tonal difference, and then it sort of grew on me. I think for this song here, I think the Rock Professors knocked a few nails on the head. We've got to take into account what Page is as a man, who he is as a man, his interests outside of music, Crowley in particular, and the Golden Dawn, and ceremonial magic, and that aspect of his life on his music coming through, especially on parts and elements of this album that we see highlighted on more albums to come, Simon and Brad, which is a fact. It's a fact. He talks about it himself, and I think this is one of those songs which is a product of an experience that Page and Plant had while they were doing, maybe ceremonial magic. I don't know. I like the fact that you, though it's a theory.
It's a thing.
And I'm not saying that that's what's happening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just saying that this is what could be an element of the song and its importance. Not only for this album, but moving forward. And Brad, you said it. They ended this album with this interesting song. So there could be elements of that. I'd like to think there is, because these guys are a little bit more than just musicians, aren't they? And I like the fact that they're thinking about philosophy, religion, the afterlife, where we're coming from, what we do, and if there's aspects of it in great rock and roll music. Fantastic. I've given this 9 out of 10 too. I'm still deciphering the song, Simon and Brad.
Yeah. Cool. Fantastic. Yes, I'd just like to sort of sum up. This is one of my favourite Led Zeppelin records. I like the diversity of it. I like the influences. I like that opening up of the vistas. I think it's got, Since I've Been Loving You, to me, is as a masterpiece, as a track. It showcases Jimmy Page's brilliance as a producer and a person who understands how to record things, understands how to arrange things as well. Him and John Paul Jones, they're just master arrangers about how you do things. I'd also like to say, John, it's fine. I think if we don't have a safe space where people can say what they think here, we shouldn't be doing it at all. People have got to be able to say they don't like an album, or they don't like a track, or whatever. And that it's got to be safe here to be able to say those things.
I get it. I've heard
completely.
it for 20 years. I get it, bro. I get where you're coming from. I've had very, very dear friends of mine say it's a piece of shit. Yeah.
So, but I think it's important to say that. I don't want, it's we have our own little community here, and this is the way we do things, and and it is acceptable for people not to like, for it not to chime with them and not to like it, and and they have to be able to say that, without fear.
Gosh,
So well done, John. Thanks, John, for doing that. As
don't sell your soul, Hugh.
he sold a Schecter.
I think everyone's entitled to an opinion, and that's there's nothing wrong with not agreeing on things. And like you alluded to, Simon, it's great that we've got a great community and safe place for people to express how they feel about things. And the wonderful thing we do on this show is we're just three dudes that are getting together, giving our opinion on an album. Doesn't mean we all have to agree on it.
Yeah,
and I'm not an expert. Never pretended to be a Led Zeppelin expert, Brad. I'm just a fan. Yep,
none of us
just a fan, bro.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
just a fan.
So guys, I'll just reiterate this. For me, if you could go and check out Hey What Can I Do as well as a companion piece to this album. It's pretty, it's very much in the same vein as what we've been discussing, and I think there isn't a place for it on here, but it's very much a companion piece for it. So check out Hey What Can I Do as a companion to this.
It's a great song.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Should have really been on the album, in my opinion.
Yeah, where does it go? And you've got to get another track on, haven't you? It's all a bit more difficult because it's 40 minutes already. So, so thank you very much for letting me do that. It's one of my favourite Led Zeppelin records, and I've really enjoyed spending a week with this, listening to it, and doing some in-depth analysis and research into it. It's been fantastic.
Jimmy, if you ever want to come on
in the chat,
John, Paul, Jones, if you ever want to come on, Mr. Plant, if you ever want to come on, tell us about that last
we're available.
Track, what you actually did, what inspired that last track in particular.
We'll fit you into our busy schedule.
Yes. Oh dear, nice one, good. So next week we
got Brody Hutchins. Brody is on. He's our guest host, ladies and gentlemen. If you're familiar with the channel, you would have seen him on. He has been on a couple of shows with us. He's going to be talking about and leading us on 38 Special, Wild Eyed Southern Boy.
Beautiful.
Yeah, which will be interesting. Yeah, not an album I'm familiar with particularly. So that'd be cool. Yeah. Fits in with our Southern rock, Allman Brothers type vibe, doesn't it?
Thank you, Holly. We're out of here.
Thank
the
you,
Rock
Holly.
Professor's going to say goodbye
to everyone in the chat. Yeah. So thanks everyone for joining. It's 21 people, so that's really cool. Christopher, live summer.
Love
Keith
you
Campbell.
too, Quentin.
Yes. Mighty Quentin James. John ZD to everyone. Thank you, John. Ellen. Hugh Caldwell. Of course, Hugh. Thank you, Hugh. Who else we had? We had Farmer Fifi. I hope you enjoyed it, Farmer Fifi.
Thank you, Farmer.
We managed to do it to come back.
Come back.
Yeah, we like the comments, and we like, we're fans, and you're a fan, so we should fit in nicely. John, who else we got? Keith Campbell, Robert Ranford popped in. Sleep well, Robert. Thanks for dropping by. I know we got Quentin, of course. The mighty Quentin James. Hope you're good, Quentin. Going your way. Holly. Lewis, of course, Holly. I think that's R2, R3 locking up. Force, thanks for dropping by, R2. That's fantastic of you to see. I think that's Gret Zeppelin as well, if I didn't mention you, Gretch. So thanks to everyone. Have a great week. And we'll see you next week with a special guest, Bron-Y Hutchins, to do 38 Special.
If you're watching and you're new to the channel and you've lasted 1 hour and 59 minutes and you have not subscribed to our channel, please do. If you subscribe to our channel, we'll give you a sub back. Please go and see our friends on our channels page. Please go and subscribe to all the channels on our channels page. If you want to be on our channels page, please let me know. Rock Professor know or Brad know, and we'll make sure we get your channel on there. We're happy to push any channel. We're not one of these people that solicit subs and expect you guys... How does it go? We're not here to solicit subs and not to sub back.
No.
Does that make sense?
Right. Reciprocal.
We collaborate here.
Collaboration. Yes. There we are. Good word. Yeah.
Please go and like the Rock Professor's video as well. And share one of our shows on your social media. Just pick a show. Any show that we've done. It doesn't have to necessarily be the last one. Any show, any video clip, if you share that on your social media links for it just helps our channel immensely. We picked up a few subs over the last week or so, but we're still bubbling. We haven't managed to push any subs through, guys. We haven't managed to have a nudge on, have we?
That's all. No. Yeah. Hey, it's weird, isn't it? Pick up all those views for Philip's Ace and all that stuff. Nobody. Why doesn't anybody sub?
Look, I've watched a few channels, and people just watch stuff, and then they just go on to the next video. People don't hit the
subscribe button. Yeah, absolutely.
You
got to do it.
Yes,
please
subscribe. Is what Andrew's saying. Please.
Please.
Please. Sugar on top.
We'd like to have 10,000 subs by the end of the year.
Oh, we have to. 100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, that's enough groveling now. Let's get out of here, kids. Take care, everyone in the chat. Lovely to see you. And we'll see you next week for more nonsense. Take it away, boss.
Thank you, Hugh. Zoso. Yeah. First Zoso show of the year. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
More Zosos coming. Brad's hinted, if you've looked at Brad's Instagram lately, there's something that's coming, eh, Brad? Hey, there's something coming. Oh, I was supposed to have that. Oh, I didn't download that photo of you with your pile of white munching powder. Oh, I knew there was something going on.
That's what happens afterwards.
Sack the producer. Bye.
Oh, dear.